Hello guys, so welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to take you through a step-by-step week in the UFC fight week on the 2nd of August. I'm going to try and give you an insight from the inside perspective of being a fighter, things like the UFC PI, the weight cuts, all these sorts of things. I'm going to take you through that and give you an insight to that because not many people see that. So I hope you enjoy the videos and stay tuned. So Monday 28th of July is a kind of normal day for myself at American Top Team. This will be my last day at American Top Team before I fly away to Vegas. But on this morning, we did some game planning with Thiago Alves. We went through some pads and some techniques that we're going to try and apply in the fight. And after that, I went for a 3-mile run just to burn some calories, preparing me for my flight on the next day, on Tuesday, heading over to Vegas. So guys, we've now arrived in Las Vegas, into the airport, Harry Reid International Airport. We see the signs of Las Vegas. My emotions are running high. I'm happy to be here. It's fight week, it's finally upon us. I'm super happy. I can't actually wait to get into fight week or fight day, sorry. So a couple of things that you guys maybe don't see. The UFC pick us up in their luxury car. So they've got this big GMC truck. They pick us up at the airport. It's like private hire almost. And what they do is they take us into the Palace Station. The Palace Station's a hotel that they do all the check-ins. They check our weight. They ask us how we're doing. They give us our meals from the UFC PI and just kind of give us a rundown about the UFC fight week. And then what I'm looking forward to is seeing my training partner Robert tonight. He's going to come in and we'll maybe do a little bit of training, a little bit of sauna, and prepare us for Wednesday's day. Wednesday's a great day for me. We're going to be involved in things like photos, trying on my UFC gear, trying on the UFC gloves. These things really hype up your emotions and get you ready. You're really low in calories at this point throughout the week. And this kind of brings a little bit of excitement. I've done a couple of things like interviews on this day as well. But the main thing for me is trying on these UFC shorts and those UFC gloves and getting my pictures taken. It kind of solidifies the kind of day ahead and what's to come. And also another part that happens with the interviews, they really delve deep into the fight itself between me and Mateusz Rebecki. So they sit us down with a couple of analysts and ask us a couple of questions about the fight. And what they do is they bring you into this kind of dark room and they ask you about what's going to happen in the fight and what's your predictions. And that kind of fills the storyline leading up to the fight. So that's quite an exciting moment as well because it almost brings the fight to life in that moment. So on Thursday it was a bit backwards compared to most UFC check-ins. Usually they ask you to sign the posters on that day when you arrive on Tuesday. But because of whatever reason or a hold up, I know what it was. The main event had changed. So they had to change the fight posters the week of. So that's a kind of crazy situation that you really don't think about when you're actually in the mix of it. So the UFC have to chop and change and get different prints of the posters, which is absolutely insane that they have to do that quickly. So I was very fortunate when I was in there. I got to get a picture with Neil Magny, an idol of the sport. I've seen him fighting since day one, and that was a kind of surreal moment for me. And in the past, I've always been a bit scared and skeptical about asking fighters who I look up to get a picture with, but I had the balls this time. I was feeling good about myself in that moment. And also Thursday is weight cut day. So this is one of the really important days and the day I'm looking forward to the most because fight week has been hellish as it is, eating the things that I've been eating. I'm just looking forward to getting the weight cut started. And that means I'm very, very close to being able to start eating and drinking fluids again. So we head over and we head to the UFC PI. Once we're in there, we do a little bit of a workout. We just start to break sweat. So we have our clothes on, just as normal, tap some pads, a little bit of drilling, and immediately after that, we drop down into the sauna and also the hot plunge down in the UFC PI. These things are there to aid the fighters and help the fighters along with the weight cut and make it as less stressful as possible. So what I do in this segment is I'll do maybe 20 to 30 minutes in the sauna, and then I'll do about 20 minutes or 30 minutes in the blankets. And then as I start to slow my sweat rate down, I then move into the sauna and start to try and increase my body temperature to help push on with the sweat. And after about 3 to 4 hours of weight cutting, we call it a night and we head back to my Airbnb, and then we'll do the rest of the weight cut in the morning of the Airbnb. So as explained, we did most of my weight cut last night, and now it's Friday morning. We're finishing off the last couple of kilograms in the bath. So what I do is I put the bath temperature at a certain temperature, and that helps me sweat. And what we do is we lie in a blanket to also increase the sweat rate. So after a kind of vigorous weight cut, it's never easy, but we always get it done. We're on weight, and what we do is we drive to the PI. From there, we kind of sit around, waiting around for the UFC to then call us forward to get our, obviously, weigh-ins done. We weigh in quickly. Obviously, I do the same thing. I've got my sunglasses on, and I've got my mother's pendant ring there. You know, that's something I carry with me all the time. And then after that, we have to sit down and rehydrate. We get our rehydration supplements from the UFC PI, and we just kind of wait around until we do the ceremonial weigh-ins. And then myself and Mateusz Rebecki, we get our names called forward. We stand in a queue right next to each other, which you don't think you would ever see. We're standing side by side, and we're just getting ready to step on the scales. And one thing that I do remember about weighing in or doing the ceremonial weigh-ins, when Sean Shelby standing in the middle of me and Mateusz Rebecki, I always remembered him smiling at me, and I remember thinking to myself that this isn't going to be friendly tomorrow. Like, I hope this guy thinks that this is going to be a war. And I remember seeing that smile, and as we left the ceremonial weigh-ins, you're walking behind a bit of a fight poster, and you kind of cut in behind and nobody's there. And I turned round to Mateusz Rebecki and I said, remember, tomorrow we're going to war. We're not friends tomorrow. And I remember him going, yes, 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 no problem, yes, good brother. And then I said, main event, we are the real main event tomorrow. We are the real main event. And he nodded his head. And that was the kind of last conversation that I had with Mateusz Rebecki before we're going to go to war. So as the day has progressed, I'm starting to ingest fluids, taking in some sodium, having some good food, meeting up with some friends and just enjoying being able to eat again. You know, I've been 8 to 10 weeks, and I think it was 10 weeks my training camp. You know, I'm starting to enjoy food again. So the day has came to an end. It's Friday night, and I thought to myself, why not just check my weight? And I stood on the scales and I was 85 kilos. So I woke up in the morning on weight at 70.7, and I gained all the way up to 85 kilos, bang on. So call it suffering, I'm great at it. You know, I've obviously got a lot of fluid in me and also a lot of food. So that weight will probably drop down a little bit overnight, but it just shows you how big of a lightweight fighter I am and why I can't go to 66 kilos. So it's fight day. It's finally here. The day has came. You know, it's been a long fight camp, and I roll over in my bed to look at my phone in the morning, and I've got this amazing picture that my fiancée sent me of my son. It says, I am the real problem, and it fills me with emotion. You know, it fills me with pride. You know, I've not seen my son. I've missed his first birthday in sacrifice of this fight. So it really motivates me for the day. And I get up in the morning, I check my weight again. I think I weighed in about 82 kilos, which is fantastic. So I lost a couple of kilos throughout the night. And then I just head downstairs for breakfast and speak to my coaches, Mike Brown, Robert Whiteford and Thiago Alves. And we get everything kind of ready to go to the UFC PI once again. And we call this thing a shakeout. So a shakeout is something that a fighter will do the day of the fight, just to maybe shake off any nerves or maybe break a sweat or just get the body moving, because you know you've been cooped up inside, you've not been doing much training this week. So this is a really good thing that you can do to kind of get your body going, or starting the engine in the morning, preempting itself for the day ahead. So that's what we do. You know, I'm quite a, don't know if you call it a spiritual guy or something like that, but a number that always comes up to me, especially in times of maybe struggle and hard times, the number 1111 always pops up on my phone or these sorts of things. But I remember being in the UFC PI and explaining to Mike Brown that 1111 is my number and that's my lucky number, or that's a number that I have a lot of connection to. And I remember putting my wraps on and giving Mike an elbow and pointing over to the clock on the wall in the UFC PI, and it said 1111. So he was like, that's a great omen for today. So that was a really cool moment. After we've done our our shakeout, our game plan and stuff like that, it's time to go back, rest up and put in some more food. You know, simple things like gummies, you know, like actual sweeties. You know, you don't want too much food in your stomach going into the fight. So you want things that have zero fiber, very little fat, all these sorts of things. So I'm enjoying myself now. I'm eating all these jelly sweets and heading home and pretty much going to be resting for the rest of the day until it's time to go. And from there, you know, all the guys were sitting around the living room table and we actually start watching some fights of Rebecki, and you know, watching some of my fights as well and talking about what we can do. And you know, we're kind of bouncing ideas off each other. And I remember to this day, I had my phone down on the ground and I was thinking about the fight and when it's time to go. And I remember I looked at the clock and I was like, well, it's 1:45. I think it's time to get ready. And you know, the nerves start to ramp up. I started getting like a little bit of a sweat on top of my eyebrows and all these sorts of things. So what you need to do when you walk into the UFC or into the PI for the fight, you need to make sure you're wearing all the Venom gear. So it's almost like you're putting your war outfit on. You know, you're getting ready, you're going to put all this stuff on and you're walking to the event. And then we get into the UFC PI and you know, everything, I've been in there before, everything's looking familiar. And then what we tend to do is just kind of relax a little bit, get our hands wrapped and start moving around with our coaches and all these sorts of things. Tiago is talking about the game plan, we're talking about the knees. We're just trying to make it semi-playful and you know, try and make it kind of like another day in the office. That's a big thing that I've learned over time, is the more relatable you can make it to your sparring and your gym days, the better you'll fight. So that's what we're aiming for. So we're warming up, like I said before, we're going into the game plan, we're talking about knees, we're talking about elbows, kicks, all these sorts of things, and we're trying to implement that the best way we can. We're talking about, because each of my coaches have their own special kind of nuance when it comes to fighting. So each coach is giving me what they want and what they want to see from me, but they all have the same kind of gist, if that makes sense. So I'm maybe doing a little bit of warm up with Robert, and then I'm going with Mike, and then I'm going with Tiago, and we're going over these sorts of things. And then that's the warm up done. And we like to give ourselves about 10 to 15 minutes rest before we walk into the fight. And one thing that really sticks into my head, and it's actually giving me goosebumps thinking about it right now, is when I was standing getting ready to walk, I have my Scotland flag wrapped around me, I have my pendant on my neck. Robert Whiteford said to me, he goes, "Chris, we've done this a million times, mate." And he says, "I know who I would rather fight tonight, and it's definitely not you." And that was something that really resonated with me, and it gave me strength, and it just showed me how much he trusts in me. And it almost gave me another gear when it came to the fight night. And you know, it filled me with pride, because I look up to Robert as well, and you know, him saying that to me just meant the world to me. So guys, you've obviously seen the fight. You know, you wouldn't be tuned in here if you hadn't seen it. You know, I'm just going to take you through some things that really highlighted in my head that I felt in the fight that maybe you wouldn't have been able to see. And also some corner advice, which was really important to help me win the fight. So obviously, you've seen in the first round, as soon as the bell went, we met in the middle. And I knew that was going to happen. You know, we shared a training camp together. I knew it was going to be a war. When I was in the fight, you know, I felt really confident. I wasn't scared of any sort of nuance or anything he was going to throw at me. But previously in the fight camp, I personally thought that Rebecki would have had the grappling advantage. So the game plan was to obviously defend as much takedowns as possible, not getting taken down, and just obviously try and keep top position if I got it. Unfortunately, I went to go for a high kick or a middle kick, and he low kicked me and I fell down and he got me down. And in that moment, I was almost surprised at myself. I felt really good and really strong on the ground, which, you know, is something that I didn't feel within the fight camp. And that immediately filled me with confidence and stuff like that, you know, as well. And when I was in the fight, I felt him hanging on me, and I felt him really, really, really holding on. And that's not what you want to do when it comes to grappling, because that's going to burn your gas tank massively when it comes to the second and third round. So that was the kind of first thing that I noticed. After that, we went back into the corner, and Mike Brown said to me, he's like, okay, Chris, we need to be careful with these high kicks, just for the takedowns. He might have edged this round because of the takedowns. I think you've landed more significant strikes, but we want to make sure we're winning every single round. So in the second round, just be very careful, not to say not to throw them, but just be very careful how you're placing them. So went out to the second round, and I started to get my groove a little bit, and I could actually feel Mateusz start to wilt a little bit, and that's kind of when I started to slowly up the gears, get myself into third or fourth gear and start to kind of put it on him. In that moment, I always remember landing my right hand, and obviously previously in the first round there, I'd landed the elbow that actually cut him wide open. We had drilled that thousands of times in camp from his jab hand, and we wanted to try and elbow him. And that was obviously, we did that loads throughout the fight itself. But the main thing in the second round for me was the blood that started to come from the previous cut in the first round. I think Dominic Cruz and Michael Bisping actually thought it could have been a headbutt, but I know it was an elbow. But obviously that me watching back the fight scene, or knew it wasn't the headbutt, it was an elbow. That was one of the big things that I took away from that fight, was, you know, seeing the blood and how that looked in the judge's eyes. And I remember walking back to my corner of the second round, and Robert was there, Mike was there, and he goes, okay, Chris, we might be up 2 rounds. And Robert Whiteford said to me, he goes, fuck that, Chris, fuck that. He says, we're winning every round. Don't get caught out in that. We don't want to be going round by round. We want to win the fight, not the rounds. So I remember we walked back out, and I thought to myself, right, I'm going to try and finish this guy. I'm going to try and put him away. So if you watch the fight back, you'll be able to hear Robert shouting at me, put it on him, put it on him. You know, and you know, I remember I was trading my right hand with his right hand. So his right hand is his lead hand, and we were trading. So my backhand is obviously my power hand, but he was using his front hand that's not as powerful. And I remember we were trading them, and I remember looking in his eyes at the time. When I hit him a couple of times, his gum shield actually twisted in his mouth, and it kind of came out, and that spurred me on to come forward and trying to put him away. And I remember seeing the blood and the welt on his head, and then teeping him in the body. I remember teeping him in the body, and he brought his hands down into this position. And I thought, I've got you, I've got you. And hats off to Mateusz. He is the Polish Terminator, because he did not go away. I'd head kicked him, I'd teeped him, I'd punched him with everything I possibly could, and I couldn't get this guy away. And the bell rang, and I always remember, you know, I thought to myself, as soon as the bell rang, I smacked his fist hard, and I put my hands in the air, and I just felt like on top of the world. And in that moment, I really didn't care if I won the fight or not, because I'd done myself a good turn there. I really proved myself to the world that I'm meant to be in the UFC. And you know, as I walked around the cage, I was shouting, Scotland, let me hear you, because I knew there was Scottish guys in the crowd. And you know, Simon was obviously over there. He was Polish, he's a traitor. But you know, these things are, you know, those moments are absolutely amazing. And I remember seeing Mateusz on the floor with all the medics, bleeding from his face, and I'm just up roaring, ready to go. And I said to Robert, I said to him, I was like, I could do another 2 rounds if I needed. And I said to him, I was like, do you think I won? He goes, absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind. And I remember standing there in the middle, the referee has got my arm, and I remember standing there and then you go in the whatever corner I was in at the time, raised my hand up. And I remember thinking to myself, thank God for that. And I thought to myself in that moment, that's definitely got to be fight of the night. That's got to be fight of the night. And then obviously Robert, my coaches and all that, they came and gave me a cuddle. And we celebrated, and I ran out the cage and I seen Simon, Robert and Barry in the corner there, and I had to run over, give the guys a cuddle, covered in blood. And then we went out the back. And as I walked to go out to the back there, I remember one thing distinctly. I seen Hunter Campbell. So Hunter Campbell is the lawyer and maybe the vice president of the UFC. And I said to him, I was like, that'll be fight of the night, Hunter, won't it? And he goes, don't you worry, we'll sort you out, mate. That was an incredible fight. And I remember saying to him, the bonus isn't for me, it's for my family. So if you can bless us with that, I'll be much appreciated. And that was the last time I seen Hunter Campbell that night. And we went through the back and went to the medics to get my stitches. So after I spoke to Hunter, I went through to the back, and the UFC team were all around me. Obviously, my face is battered and bruised. I've got a couple of cuts under my eyes, so they want me to go and get stitched by the medical team. So she puts me on the bed and she injects me with the numbing. And I remember Sean Shelby, the matchmaker, came through. He's like, one hell of a fight, man. And then I said to him in that moment, I said, thank you very much for the opportunity to put me in co-main event, and thank you for trusting in me to obviously be co-main event, because that's a massive part of the UFC. So after that, Sean Shelby had said, we're going to have to send you to the hospital because we need to give you a CT scan, especially if you're going to be flying home very, very soon. So I said, I'm okay, I don't need to go and get CT scans, but you know, you've got to do what your employer says and go and get the CT scans. So they put me in the back of an ambulance and they sent me up the road. My face is all battered and bruised. I'm in the ambulance, I'm phoning home, I'm phoning my gran, I'm phoning my grandpa, I'm phoning Laura, I'm phoning the kids, to tell them I won, and all these sorts of things. We get into the hospital, and the first thing that happens is they take me right to the CT scan place. They take me in. They say, we'll be 2 minutes, this is American hospitals for you, everything gets done bang on time. So we're in, we get the CT scan, and they say, we're going to wait on your results, we need you to go back to your room or the kind of ward and just wait. And as I walked past, I seen Mateusz Rebecki in his room, and I said to Mateusz, Mateusz, I'm in the number 22, I said, come and see me before you go. He said, yes, no problem, my friend, no problem. So I was waiting, and I was getting some checks and stuff like that. And I could hear Mateusz hobbling up the road, and I thought that'll be him, because he's maybe wearing his flip-flops or his shoes or whatever. And the famous video that I'm going to put in here right now of us in the hospital paying each other respects to each other, and brothers bonded by blood. That's what I kind of envision it as, because when you go through a fight like that and you go through a war like that, you're bounded by blood. And I'm forever grateful for Mateusz to put on a fight like that. It was absolutely fantastic. So after having that amazing moment with Rebecki, it was time to go home and fill my belly with some bad food. So Thiago Alves was kind enough to order us some pizzas for the room, or the Airbnb, sorry, and they were waiting on us as we arrived, which is fantastic. I walked in the door, I could smell the pizza. I hadn't eaten a bit of bad food in months. So we all sat around the table, me, Thiago, Mike Brown, Robert Whiteford, and Simon came along, and also Robert Dempster and Barry Dempster, and we all talked about the fight. And, emotions were on high, and everybody was telling me, you fought so well, and I was super happy, and I was speaking to Laura on the phone. It was such a wholesome moment. I had all these amazing people around about me, family, friends. It was such a surreal experience, and it just showed me like how lucky I am to have all these friends around about me and all that sort of stuff. So the next part for me is heading to bed, and this is a hard one for me because I did not sleep a wink. My emotions were running high, my adrenaline was pumping, And I remember lying in my bed, you know, I plugged in my phone, lay on the side of the bed, pulled the duvet over me, lay in my bed like this, tried to get to sleep. And I remember going to myself as I was falling asleep or trying to get to sleep, oh well, meaning like another day in the office, you know, and it was a bit surreal. My face was all smashed up, there's blood on the couch, there's blood on the bed from the fight, and it was just a bit mad. And I remembered I'd had a couple of sleeping tablets, so I had to go through to the bathroom, took a couple of sleeping tablets, and that put me out. It's Sunday, the fight's done, I wake up in the morning like a 50-year-old man, crawl out of my bed, sore shins, sore back, sore face, you name it. And you know, I'm on the message to everybody. I'm on the phone to Simon, Robert and Barry. And Barry and Robert have invited us round to the Bellagio, the casino, and they want us to have a few beers. So I'm really excited about that, to jump in the pool and just enjoy some good food. So they bought a cabana, and you know, Robert and Barry Dempster have been great sponsors of mine. So they were kind enough to put us up and pay for the food and stuff like that, which was fantastic. And you know, we were having fun, talking about the fight and talking about other things back home and looking forward to getting back up the road. So that was a really cool experience. And Simon, the madman, was still doing work. He was editing videos as we were going through it. So, madman. But anyway, what was next? What did we do that day? Didn't really do much, did we? We just kind of... Simon left, you know, after doing all his editing. He was on the way home, and I gave him a hug goodbye. He's up the road, and I said, I'll see you Monday. And my flight was the following day. And this is one thing that I've realised over the course of my UFC career. You know, I would always never stay a couple of days extra because I was worried if I lost the fight, and that's kind of the wrong mentality. So this time around, I booked a couple of extra days to stay in Vegas and enjoy the fruits of my labour, you know, and maybe go back to the PI and maybe just have a look around Vegas. So that's what we did. You know, we went around to a couple of different casinos, didn't really do much. You know, we just kind of walked around, enjoyed some food, enjoyed the company that we were in, and then we flew home on the Monday, I think it was, or the Tuesday. So I spent a lot of good time with some good friends, you know, and that was the end of an absolutely intense week, but one of the best weeks of my life. And you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, like I said to you guys before, that I'm very lucky to have everybody around me, Simon from Rock and Roll Tattoo Studio, Barry and Robert from Prime Secure, Robert Whiteford, my training partner from day one. You know, it's been such an amazing experience, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. And I've got a fight coming up very, very soon, so I'm probably going to do another one for you guys, because I want you guys to see the day in a life of me as a UFC fighter. No, this is what you've done. Yeah. Check, Simon.
I was just taking notes.